I mean, it had to be a real mental challenge to go from, a big fish in a small pond in South Dakota to play, major high-level college golf. What was that like, and what kind of would go through your brain, or was it easier than you might think? Welcome back to the Player Pursuits podcast. I'm your host, Alex Shattuck. Today we have a guest on that is an LPGA EPSON Tour player. It's going to be kind of determined in the next couple weeks as she prepares for Q School. Kim Kaufman, welcome. Welcome on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so Kim is preparing for, I believe, what is it still Q Series final stage? They keep changing it up.
Yeah, either or. Q Series final stage. They've changed it a bit this year. So Q Series was really when they did two back-to-back weeks essentially, and it was 8 cumulative rounds. This year they have turned it back a little bit, and we're just doing 6 rounds, 6 consecutive rounds in one site. So a little bit different, but obviously saves a little bit of cost. And I think 8 was maybe probably a little too much. Like, you're going to get the same result probably from 6 rounds as 8 rounds. So yeah, Q Series final stage, all of the above.
All right. And so for those who don't know, Q School is sort of like the world's hardest, longest, most expensive job interview
Yeah.
on Earth. So can you tell us a little bit about what that entails, and also how you know where you start? There's first stage, second stage. On the men's side, there's pre-qualifying. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a lot to explain and to grapple with, but I do explain it a lot to people. So on the LPGA side, we have just three stages. First stage is in August, and that is going to be anyone out of college, anyone who just says I'm going to go to Q School, just turn pro, and that has played the EPSON Tour and is outside the top 125 at that point. That's pretty much who's going to be in a first stage. So they did that. About 100 girls make it out of there and go to second stage, and joining them at second stage is anyone on the LPGA list who is outside the top 150, anyone on EPSON who's going to be outside the top 35 at the end of the year if they think they're going to be, and then a few other ones, like certain people maybe on world ranking might get in. Some girls from like a mini tour we partner with gets in. So there's a few other people that will come and join you there, but that's second stage, and that's generally seen as the most difficult stage. You have about 200 people for 40 spots. Just numbers wise, it's not a huge cut that make it out. So those 40 now, which I was one of those, now come to final stage, and we join girls that were on the LPGA that finished 101 to 150. And also probably, I think, maybe top 75 in the world, any of those girls from maybe the JLPGA or the KLPGA that want to come. So you'll get a few others like that, but that's generally what it is. So we have about 120 at final stage, and 45 in ties will get LPGA status.
Okay. And where is that this year? It keeps moving around.
Yeah, we had it at Pinehurst for a few years, and we struggled with daylight and just like frost in the morning. So now we're in Mobile, Alabama. On the RTJ trail, 2 courses there. With the daylight, you need even with only 120 players, you need 2 courses. So I played there last year. They're great golf courses. They're fantastic places to host. They know what they're doing. We actually hosted an LPGA event there my rookie year at one of those courses. So it's a good venue. Can we get some cold, bad weather? Yeah, we probably can. But for the most part, you are getting pretty close to Florida. So fingers crossed that we'll, be okay. Everyone plays the same weather, but you don't want it to be like 34 and you're teeing off for anyone. So that's probably the biggest, problem being there. But so far it's been okay.
So when you're going into an event like this, how does your approach change? You're kind of a seasoned vet. You've spent many full years on the LPGA Tour. You've kind of done it all. How are you approaching going into this event? And what does maybe a day of practice look like, knowing that you're going to final stage here in a week and a half?
Yeah. So my practice has really been, there's things we came back in the second stage, which was a little over a month ago. So we had a significant amount of time here, and there's a few things we really wanted to do. Like I changed my grip for my putting a little bit, like a little bit of my driver, like some things we really wanted to work on. But overall, it's just doing a little bit of everything every day, which for me, it's always 5 areas. It's chipping, bunker, putting, wedges, full swing. And I'm going to do a little bit of that every day. And then I'm probably going to play as well. I'm fortunate to be at a golf course here where I played 18 holes today in 2 hours. I was the only person out there. So which really helps as well. But, and then also, just setting up matches with other pros that are playing. There's another girl at my club that's going to go and guys that are going. So, but really like, are all five things sharp every day? And every day doesn't feel as sharp, but just keeping it fresh. But as far as the mindset, that is something that has probably changed over my 10 years as you grow and mature and see a little more. And I think the mindset is really, I talked to my mental coach about this, weeks ago. I said, it's a great opportunity, but you also know it's not the only opportunity. It's just like part of the journey, but that's a hard place to get to. If you're young, you're just coming out, or you maybe don't have status anywhere, which at final stage, you're going to have status in Epsom. So everyone truly has somewhere to play next year, but it's easy to think like, this is it. This is my only chance. But if you really believe in yourself and in a good mental space, I can be as prepared as I am. I can be like, maybe feel like I'm the best player out there, but I might get food poisoning, or I might just like not make a putt and not make it. But if I know I'm a good player, believe in myself, I will get there, whether it's through Q School this year or through the EPSON Tour next year or playing an LPGA event next year that I reshuffle. It's just part of the journey. I would say it's an opportunity. It's not the only opportunity. And that's really where I have definitely changed in the last 10 years to get to that place.
I don't think you could have put it any better, and I'm sure that current you would love to tell that to a rookie Kim.
Yeah.
Although you did have quite a bit of success pretty early as
Well, I
well.
was I was lucky. I was lucky in that aspect that I didn't have to do that. But I look at so many girls and I think, gosh, just girls that are great players, but just kind of almost sabotage themselves because they think it's the only opportunity. They think it's the end of the world to maybe you came out as the number one am in the world and you had to go play Epson. Like, it's okay. The tour will be there, and the tour will just keeps getting better. So, yeah, I do. I hope everyone. I wish I could tell everyone that, but it's hard. Sometimes you have to just live through it and get there yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take one short break and we'll be back to kind of talk about the way you came up. We'll go deeper into that and your career and what you're looking forward to.
The game of golf. It's both challenging and rewarding, requiring focus, concentration, and the ability to tune out outside distractions. Peak performance is achieved through a synergy of body and mind. Shell Golf Apparel is designed with advanced textile technology that moves with you, with four-way stretch and moisture-wicking properties that keep you cool and dry. Visit shell.shop today and get 40% off the entire golf collection using promo code PlayerPursuits. Now, back to the podcast with your host, Alex Shattuck.
All right, we are back with Kim Kaufman. Now, one of the kind of funny things about having you on the pod is that we are both from South Dakota. I met Kim for the first time, I think I was like 12 or 13, and she's actually the one that taught me aim point. Me, just a middle school dweeb, and Kim, one of the top collegiate players in the country. But Kim grew up, from a smaller town in South Dakota, very different upbringing from a lot of girls that make it to the top level or even make it to the top level of college golf. So Kim, tell us about a little bit where you're from and what your junior golf career looked like. And maybe I can put that in perspective for the listener.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked about that a lot. People, learning from South Dakota and they think, gosh, like, do you even play golf up there? And I say, we love our golf. It's just not a very long season. So for me, I grew up in Clark, South Dakota, which is a population of 1,200 people, just a little farm town. But I always say we had a 9-hole golf course, which is all we needed. My dad thought he was going to play golf. He was probably early 30s, but instead, my sister and I really played golf instead. We loved it. I was 4 years old and Ashley was 6, and that's just what we did. We just loved to play. Ashley went and played a tournament when she was probably 7 years old and came back with this medal. And I was like, I need one of those. So at 5 years old, I played my first tournament. I was obviously very mature as a kid, and just competitive. I just loved it. Like you said, and for us, we played all summer. We played that 9-hole golf course a million times, and we would play the little South Dakota Junior Tour, which was fantastic for us. And for years and years, I finished last every time because I was playing with these 11 and under kids like my sister, but I didn't care. I loved it. So as we got a little bit older, we would try for any, USG event, the girls junior, the pub links, or the AM. And if I qualified for one of those, that's where we would take a trip. But other than that, we didn't play an AJGA. I didn't really play much of anything else. Maybe a little bit in Minnesota, but You know, it's a short summer, and thankfully we had a really good junior tour that we could compete on. And then, you know, as I got older, I usually did qualify for something so I could go out, you know, nationally and kind of see where you stack up, because you can become in a little bit of a little shelter just playing in South Dakota. You know, there's a lot more out there. And that was it. And, you know, we didn't really know any different. You know, I didn't think like, oh, these other girls in Florida are playing year round and getting better. Like, I mean, obviously I realized Florida didn't have winter, but it just, to me, it was just normal. Like, you put your clubs away. We'd hit in a net in the winter, but that's fine. We never once took a trip south. I've never once had played in December until I went to college. And, you know, that's what was kind of funny, is I thought I'm going to go play summer and play year round. So I went to Texas Tech. But that very first, we finished about the 1st of November, and I was like, whew, like my body clock was kind of like, we got to put the clubs away. And my teammates are like, you know, are we going to go play? And I'm like, go play? Like, what do you mean? Like, we don't have a tournament till January. Like, so that took me a little while. It took me a little while to kind of have like almost the stamina to practice year round, and, or not stamina, but even just mentally not to need that break. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I loved growing up there. I thought it was fantastic. It gave me a ton of opportunities. And I didn't know any different.
Just I mean, it had to be a real mental challenge to go from, you know, a big fish in a small pond in South Dakota to play, you know, major high level college golf. What was that like, and what kind of would go through your brain, or was it easier than you might think?
No, you are right in that. Like, I really wanted to go to like a big school. I wanted to experience all of that, to go to a big city. So I went to Lubbock, which in Texas, they're like, oh, that's not, but I was like, oh, this is great. Like, there's a movie theater. It's, you know, it's 250,000 people, but people kind of make fun of that in Texas, which is funny. So, yes, I was, you know, obviously very confident in South Dakota. I was definitely the big fish in a small pond. And when I went to Tech, I vividly remember I had, you know, I had 2 teammates from the Philippines and a couple girls from Texas and a girl from California. And I thought, oh gosh, like they're obviously great. They're from Asia and they're worth the Philippines, you know, they're going to make it. And I remember that first qualifier, you know, my coach, and he's like, Kim, like, you're good enough, like you'll make it. But I did feel a little insecure. I didn't have the confidence I did at home for sure. But I won that first qualifier and I qualified. And that, I think, was so big for me, just to prove to myself, like, okay, I can do this too. Like, just because they're from the world doesn't necessarily mean they're that much better than you. And so that was probably fortunate. If I wouldn't have maybe made that first, probably would have gone. I may have lost my confidence. It might have been a little bit hard, but thankfully I played well and I kind of proved it to myself pretty quickly. But yeah, it was a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, and Kim very much will downplay her college career, but I was a high schooler just keeping up with, you know, old friends and names I knew. I went on Golf Week, and she's the #1 college player in the country, and that is beyond impressive. I just had a college golf coach on the last episode. We talked for quite a bit how challenging college golf is. You're playing during the worst months of the year. You're a full-time student. You're traveling courses you've never seen before, hard courses you've never seen before, playing against you know, a proving ground that has most of the best, you know, 20-year-olds in the world. And so that is a crazy impressive thing. And how did that prepare you for when you turned pro? A lot of times in the women's game now, it doesn't seem like a lot of the girls stick around for 4 years of college, or even go to college.
Yeah, it is a little different on our side. You know, difference in, I think, just male and females and girls maturing so much earlier, and they'll go. I mean, you know, Rose Zhang went to a couple of years, which was great, but could have easily came out at 17. Nelly Korda came out at 18. I mean, it's just different. But I actually would say, because of those, one, 4 years in college, definitely was not ready to come out. But I probably was a little more confident going from college to tour than I was from South Dakota to college. So like you say, those things, like, you know, being ranked #1 for a while and being All-American, going to nationals, like, you just seeing that over and over builds your confidence. We talk, my mental coach and I talk a lot about confidence is just proven evidence. Seeing proof and evidence just builds confidence. It's truly, like, you know, a plus and minus game. So it helped a ton. It helped a ton. I went out on tour, and once again, I was pretty naive. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I could play good golf. And you know, we just kind of hit the ground running when I turned professional.
So when you first turned pro, you were on the what was the Symmetra tour is now the EPSON Tour. For those who maybe don't know, it's like the Corn Ferry Tour on the women's side, the tour right
Yep.
under the LPGA. And that tour has grown tremendously. If you ever get the chance to go watch, go do it. It's a blast. The girls are amazing, and you're watching the girls that will be on tour next year. So, Kim, what
Yeah.
was your first
Yeah.
year on that tour like? If I recall correctly, you had a pretty good season.
I did. It was that's probably like, that's a great story, really. When I graduated college, there was at the time on this semester tour what was called an A5 exemption, and that meant if you were at the end of December that previous year, the top 5 players in the college golf rankings could come directly out and play the Symmetra Tour. So I was one of those 5. So I did that, and at the time there was 15 events in the tour, and there was 10 events left. So I go out there, play my first event. I think I finished T10. Play my second event, and I go to play my third event, which is my first one on my own. Really, it was in the UP in Michigan, and I was a little bit homesick. I wasn't staying in housing for the first time, driving up, knocking on a stranger's door, like, what am I doing here? And we're playing on Sunday. My host dad said, "You want me to caddy?" Like I think he had caddy for a girl who missed a cut. And I said, okay. And we're playing fine, but nothing crazy. It was a really windy day, and I shoot 5 under and I win that event. And I think I won $17,000, which I thought was like $1 million. Like I thought I'm set for life. This is great. There on out, like I said, I was lucky. I had a fast start there, which I look back now and realize how lucky that was. But at the time, I didn't probably realize it. Just financially having a little bit of money, which no, 17,000 is not a lot, but when you're just driving your car around playing the EPSON Tour, that is quite a lot of money. So we finished the year and I'm in the top 10, and I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, like, could I get an LPGA Tour card? And I'm feeling it a bit. And we go to the last event, Daytona Beach, and I don't remember if I missed the cut or I made the cut and finished like dead last, and I dropped out. Like I finished like 12, and I thought it was the end of the world.
Oh, last event, Daytona Beach.
Okay, so I go to Daytona Beach, and I was so nervous. Like I totally choked. And I don't remember if I missed the cut or if I just made the cut and finished dead last, but made like $300 and dropped out of the top 10, which I thought was the end of the world. Like I was saying, like once again, I thought it was, the only opportunity. So I go straight to the final stage, and back then 1 through 20 got like a full card, like no reshuffle, and 21 through 45 was conditional. I am not lying when I say back then I didn't know what conditional even meant. I had no clue. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what a reshuffle was. I didn't know anything. So I go and I play my first round. I shoot like 75, like not great. But it's 5 rounds. So over 4 more rounds, I kind of chip away at it, and I finished 21st. And once again, I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how am I out just one again? So in my opinion, I'm like, great, I'll just play the year in EPSON again. I do not know what this conditional status means. I think I've lost my card. So I go and I start the EPSON season, and I win like the second event. So I'm like leading the money list. And I'm like, if you know me, I'm a planner. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stay on the EPSON Tour. Like I'm going to, I have to stay here. And my agent calls me and says, Kim, you got into Dallas. And I'm like, okay, but I don't really want to go because there's an EPSON Tour event at the same time, but I'm like a little too afraid to tell him. I don't really know how to do this. So I go, and you probably know this, but I finished 4th in that event. And therefore I learned what a reshuffle is. The reshuffle next week, and I reshuffled up, and then I played the LPGA Tour for the next 7 years.
Well, let's
So we
start with
say
the
like
fact that it doesn't
an
mean.
opportunity versus just, it's not the only one. Like you just play good golf, you get there. So
Well, let's start with the fact it takes you need a dang PhD to understand how any of these tours
it
build their
is
field.
somewhat, yes. Reshuffle is something I explain a lot as well. So yeah, like now if you like, when I go to Q school, top 1 through 45, those are all, you could say they're almost all conditional. They're all in a reshuffle category, meaning a third of the way they're going to look at who's in that category and say, okay, you've made the most money, you now go to the top of that category, meaning your number on the priority list is better, you're going to get into more events. And then they'll do that 2/3 of the way through the year again. And like the men's side does it, I think 5 or 6 times. They do it a lot, but rewarding those that are currently that are taking advantage and playing well. Which great if you're playing well, not great if you can win Q school here in December and not make a cut, and pretty soon you're kind of at the bottom of the priority list again. So which is just the way it works.
Yes. So I want to talk about, just for players to pick something up. Kim's talked a lot about how, this opportunity will never be the only opportunity. I get players very frequently that I work with that say, I have one round that I care about so much in 3 months. It's the only tournament I care about all year. And as an instructor, I go, that's not the mentality that's going to allow you to play
No.
your best golf. If you're putting
Yeah,
all
it's
your
not
eggs
great.
in one basket, you're putting so much extra stress on yourself for that round. You'd be much better off almost treating it like it's one of a number of rounds that you're going to be playing, taking a more long-term approach at it. And I think that's something, you've probably had to learn a bunch of times in your career, and you're continuing to learn. And I think the mentality that you described going into this year's Q School is basically perfect.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I mean, obviously we'd be, a little naive to say that there aren't more rounds that are obviously more important, like Q School for me, or maybe students going to do the mid-am qualifier. But at the end of the day, there's a mid-am qualifier next year, or you know what I mean? Like, or maybe they don't win, they don't qualify for the mid-am, but they and they go, man, that was pretty fun too. But the minute you put it as on a pedestal, more than likely you're going to be out there either striving for birdies or resisting bogey.
Perfect. So when going to try to play, your best golf, approaching a round, what type of expectations are you going in with, if any?
So like I'll talk about, like, I had a really good second stage of Q School, and I did something there I have tried to do before, but I hadn't in a long time. And everyone talks about, you hear this in all sports all the time, like, oh, the process. But most people, I don't think, really know what that means and know how hard that is. So my goal, my expectation out to second stage was like truly simple. Like, I'm gonna hit every shot the best I can. But with that came, I never looked at the leaderboard for 4 days. Slept on it. I didn't look at my tee time. I had my caddy, my husband looked at my tee time. I did not want to know. And let me tell you, that's really difficult. But I stood up in every shot, and I reminded myself over and over, like, how can I hit the shot in front of me the best I can right now? That sounds super easy to sit here and to listen to it or say it, but to do that is incredibly difficult. So like, my expectation, we have 6 straight rounds, is to do that same thing next week. I'm not going to ask them what they shot. I'm not going to ask any friends what they shot. I'm not going to look at my score. And it takes a lot. That last day for that final round at second stage, no, I mean, like, I'm not dumb. I knew I was playing well, but I thought, oh, maybe I can look tonight. It's only one round left. But I said, no, I'm not. Because no matter how I finish, I will be so proud of myself if I do that, because I can control that. And that's the one thing I could control, was staying in the present, not looking where I was, not getting ahead of myself, and worrying about the outcome. Which the minute you start thinking about the outcome, whether it's a shot outcome, your round, the tournament outcome, you're not in the present. You are not working on the process, which we all want to throw around. It's thrown around so much, and I just think people don't really know what it means or realize how hard it is. So my expectation is to go and try to stay in the present and truly just focus on the process.
That's amazing. I think that so many players would be better served by going into a round, leaving with the goal of being proud of your process rather than proud of the score. Because if your process is rock solid, you're going to get the most out of your round from a score perspective.
Yeah. And like, maybe not every time, but in the long run, you are, as we talked about, like, over the journey. Like, I mean, I still had, around a Q School, I shot even par. I did not play good. I was lucky to shoot even, but I thought if I would have got caught up suddenly knowing I was T27 to start, and now I'm probably T49, it would have probably went haywire. But I just kept with it. But that's also, like I say, but that's taken me years. I mean, that's taken me, I started working on a mental coach probably 3 years ago. And I'll never forget we had our first conversation, and it was like, I'm going to try to do these couple things in the golf course. I'm like, this is going to be great. This is going to change my life. It's going to be so easy. And then I played my tournament round and came back to her, and I said, I didn't do one thing. Not one time did my brain go where I was supposed to go. It just all went like right out the window, because it's super difficult. You are literally retraining your mind.
Well, and you've played what, 7 full years on the LPGA Tour?
Yeah,
Is that about right?
several years. I've played since I was 4 years old. I mean, it's like, it's unbelievable. Yet you're still learning, and it's so hard, which is part of what you love about golf and part of what's probably so frustrating. But yeah, it is. It's incredibly difficult.
So let's talk about those 7 years on tour. I mean, I've been fortunate enough, I've caddied in 3 tour events or 4 maybe. And after every week, I, as a caddy, as a young, in shape guy, I like to think I'm beat. I'm dead. I need 3 days in bed. How are you doing that all year long?
Yeah, I would say when I was like I first joined LPGA, I think I was 22, and I thought everything was just so much fun. And we were traveling, the LPGA especially just goes all around the world. We were doing Asia and we were doing Europe, and I thought it was a blast. And I know at one time I did 8 events in a row, which probably wasn't my best decision, but I think you just have a lot of like adrenaline, a lot of energy. But I also was smart. I wasn't the girl that was like going out late at night either. Like I rested. I sleep well on the road, which is good. But I will say as you get older, or like, now I'm playing Epson a little more now, and I've pushed my own cart. You don't have to have a caddy. And like, holy cow, like we played in Utah this year in Salt Lake, and I thought, I'm not gonna make it up this hill.
Ah, dang it. This one's gonna be a little bit harder to splice together than our other ones. We back?
I'm back. I don't know where you
Okay.
lost me, but
Utah.
okay, so I was gonna say, then this year, we played in Utah, and I pushed my own cart a lot on Epson. You don't have to have a caddy, and we were at elevation, and I didn't know if I was gonna make it up. Like we pretty much go up into the mountain and then down the mountain, and I was like, holy cow! Like 22 to 32 is much different. I will say that it is much different. There's times I thought, man, I do need to hire myself a caddy. You can come out to the Epson tour.
Yeah, I
Hey,
gotta get back
hey,
on
it's
the road. I'm
great.
on
Let
the
me
main
tell
line
you,
now.
perfect.
Yeah, anytime. So you played for a long stretch on the LPGA tour, and you were pretty popular out there. When I caddied for you early this year in LPGA tour event, and you were like everyone's older sister coming back. What does that do for your desire to get back to the top level?
Yeah, you did catch me in Hawaii, and it'd been over a year probably since I played an LPGA event, and it was so fun to go back and see so many of my friends. And it was I called my husband and I said, maybe I didn't play great, but it was really inspiring. I needed that event because sometimes you can be down and absent or feel like it's so out of reach, or I don't know what it is, but it was like an inspiring week it kind of re-energized me a bit to be like, hey, here we go, like this is where I think I belong, or where I want to be. So it was a great week, and it really did kind of re-spark my desire to keep at it. It has been it's been a tough few years, and you can start to think, man, like I could do a lot of other things and make some money, because right now I'm not making any money, but I love golf, and I think I can go back out there. So yeah, you need that sometimes. You need a little bit of motivation.
So when you're playing well versus when you're not playing as well as you'd like, does your approach change?
I've had conversations about this. I think sometimes it does change, but it probably shouldn't. Sometimes I found myself when I was at my worst practicing so much, but in reality, I probably should have maybe stepped away, or walked away, or just said, I was probably practicing harder, not smarter. What do I really need to fix? What's really going on? But that's hard. That's hard to do in the moment. You're out there and you're flailing, and you're losing your car, and you're losing your game, and everyone, or people often think, oh, they're probably not working at it. No, we're working so hard at it. But it's just not working. I'm not doing the correct things, whether it's in your golf swing, or I mean, it's mentally. But so my advice to people would probably be, look at it, assess it. Do you need to, make a swing change? You need to, look at maybe a club fit, whatever it is, but your approach generally should have been the same. And I think at times I did too much, too hard, didn't give myself a break. And that's when it really became work.
Mhm. So when you are working on your swing, you were doing a lot of swing work earlier this year when I was with you. Does building that process, is it something you stick with if you believe in it? Do you wait for the clicks? Like, how do you know that you're making the right
That's
decision?
Man, that's a great question. You don't know, and that is what's really hard. Yeah, like I felt like I needed, to work on my golf swing, and I'm someone, like, say, if I go to a lesson, you say do this, I will stand there and do that until, my hands bleed, like almost to a fault. And I would do that, and I would do that. But I finally had this moment this year and I said, I'm listening to everyone and I am trying so hard to believe in what they're saying, various coaches I had seen, but I'm not listening to myself because in my gut, I know this isn't right. Because when it is right at this level, I would say it clicks pretty quickly. And I've had that conversation a few times with fellow players, like with my husband. We're not starting at scratch. We're not a 10-year-old that's trying to learn to, whatever. So that is what I have learned. If you're doing something and someone says it's going to take months, it's probably not the right thing, not at this level. So I started listening to myself. I just kind of went out on my own a little bit and it clicked actually quite quickly. Yeah.
Well,
But it's hard to know. It's hard to know that. You don't know that. That's a really great question because you're questioning yourself. Well, you say you don't want a person just quits and gives up and you go, well, man, if I would have stuck with that for 4 more months. But like I said, I believe at this level, generally, you're going to see something happen pretty quickly if you're doing the right thing.
well, you know your body so well. Obviously, as an elite athlete, you have great body control. I mean, every time we've played, it's just like she's a machine off the tee. And when that's not, it has to be jarring, and then of course difficult to trust as well. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's been fun to watch your game just get better and better as the year has gone on, and hopefully we're peaking at the right time.
Hopefully, we hope that. Yeah, I agree. We especially in this fall, we started to see it really come up, and then you have I played really great well in Oregon. It was the first time I felt like I was there to compete. I knew where I was hitting the ball. I putted well, and you think this is it, and then I went to like Utah and I missed the cut, and I was like, I've lost it. It's up and down. It's always an ebb and a flow, but it was good for me too. Generally, we had to still work out some kinks, but yeah, you want to peak at the right time, obviously. But that's also what's good about 6 rounds. You're probably gonna have a tough round in there. You hopefully have a couple great rounds in there. But as we say, we want to peak, but as we keep saying, it's just part of the journey. So we'll see what happens.
I like that you mentioned that going into Q school, sort of knowing beforehand that something is going to go awry, you're going to have great moments, and being able to accept that early. I was caddying for a good friend of ours at a Monday qualifier at the beginning of the year, and I told him before the round, he hadn't competed in a long time. I said, listen, something's going to go wrong out there.
Yeah.
Let's decide
Yeah.
how we're going to react to it now,
That
rather than
is
wait
so
until we're
smart.
there.
Yeah, we always talk. My mental coach will say, the storm's going to come, and how are you going to prepare for it? Are you going to be out there flailing around, or do you have your life jacket ready? Something is going to happen. And for us, it's generally like, just like say, can you accept it? You have to like it, but can you accept the shot you just said? Can you accept that you maybe made a double bogey because you got 100 holes left? So that is like high level mental coaching, mental training. But like say, once again, sounds super easy.
Yeah.
But the first time we talked about like acceptance, I went out there, didn't accept a thing. it really, I mean, it's things you have to we'll sit there and we'll do a swing drill 1,000 times. You have to remind yourself mentally also 1,000 times what you're supposed to do. But that's so much harder to do for some reason. It's not a tangible thing, I think, which is why it's so much harder to do.
Well, yeah, and you and I, if you and I are struggling with something like this, every player is going to be struggling with this. It amazes me, even working with players, they'll find their rhythm, their groove on the range and just peer a bunch. But the golf course is not the range. It's not this static environment. The result is there, and we place so much importance on it, whether we should or not. And I see players, they hit a good first tee shot and their second shot into the green isn't perfect, and then we start to go kind of downhill, abandoning the things that put us in a good position before that.
Yeah, like saying, we do it even at our level. We do things that you get done, and we maybe we're aware of it, but it's hard. It's really hard. I wish we had from a young age, and there's so much better now, but I didn't have much, just where you worked on some of those really simple concepts from a young age. Cause I think you maybe take to them more as a kid than you do as an adult when you're overthinking everything and, just want to do everything technically. So you're obviously do great coaching for them because you're well aware of it. But as always, easier said than done.
Oh yeah, this is the stuff this is why I love getting out and caddying and going to tour events. Even if it's not my job anymore, even if I'm not really benefiting that much from it, I feel like it keeps me engaged in what not only you guys are going through, but also what my clients are going through. I had a guest on last week, and we were talking about how a lot of times for an amateur, that member guest or that qualifier they're gearing up for all year, they feel the same things that
Yeah.
you felt going into a US Open, or you felt
Yeah.
going into any
But yet
event
they
that
have
you.
like no tools to deal with it. So I feel for them. They're out there with zero tools. So it's amazing that, they make contact. Like I say, I think I have this whole toolbox that I worked on and I pay someone to help me with, and they have nothing. So it's hard. It's a really hard game.
Yeah. No, it is incredibly hard, and you play it at the highest level. We are going to be rooting for you. I know the LPGA doesn't always make Q School super easy to find, but if anyone wants to follow along, I'm sure we can get you a link
Just
or whatever. Q
if you
School
go to the LPGA
LPGA.
website, it should just be the only leaderboard on, or the app actually. So
Yeah,
it should be okay. Yeah.
absolutely. And
I know
go
none of the tours make it very easy to find, but
go follow Kim. Make sure that we make sure she gets through, and she'll be back on the LPGA sooner than rather than later. I'm sure of it.
that sounds great. We'll have Alex. You can do a podcast from the course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you guys.